Welcome to another exciting episode from Marvelous Videos. I'm your host, Theo. Who is Adar? Exploring the terrifying evil entity unveiling in the Rings of Power. In our videos about the Lord of the Rings universe, we have often spoken at length about the extensive nature of Tolkien's lore. The diverse and complicated storylines are all interrelated, and it is fascinating how the tiniest of things also have relevance on a larger scale. The new Amazon series, The Rings of Power, has the burden of maintaining a rich legacy, and without the rights to some of the major works of Tolkien, it is always a challenging task.
It is a map of the Southlands.
It brings into play some new unexplored story arcs and introduces some new characters that the fans are not familiar with. The third episode has revealed the presence of what looks like one of the main evil entities in the show apart from Sauron, Adar.
If Orcs were capable of such a thing, it seems Morgoth has a successor.
An engaging series needs the evil side to be adequately terrifying and mighty, and Adar seems to fit the bill perfectly as the leader of the Orcs. In this video, we will bring you everything there is to know about Adar and the theories around how his character might pan out going ahead. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Wait! Bring him to Adar.
Exploring his appearance in the Rings of Power, the third episode unleashed quite a few shocking moments for the fans, and one of the major events has to be the appearance of Adar towards the end. It all started with a reindeer being presented as one of the prisoners of the Orcs, but these ungodly creatures are not killing off their prisoners as one would expect. Instead, they are shown to have a devised and meticulous plan to use them as slaves and dig around an extensive underground passage and its outskirts.
Great servant stuff about. Now dig!
A reindeer and his fellow elf prisoners speculate that the passages leads all the way up to Horden, or maybe even beyond that. Eventually, they come to the conclusion that the Orcs are basically ransacking villages secretly because they are searching for something. Even the work that they force the prisoners to do may have something to do with their search for something that they keep a closely guarded secret. However, it does point to the fact that Morgoth does have a successor out there, and the evil forces are continuing their work while the elf forces are misled into thinking that it is all peaceful after the defeat of Morgoth. A reindeer and his fellow elf prisoners plan a daring escape because even one of them makes it out alive. It might give the forces a chance to strike back at the evil forces before it's too late. After the escape attempt goes terribly wrong, a reindeer is ordered to be introduced before Adar by the Orcs. This is when we get the first glimpse of this character, who is clearly important enough for an entire episode to be named after him. A terrifying figure emerges from the depths of the cave network, and all of the other Orcs regard him with the utmost respect and fear, establishing that he is the leader. He emerges through the hordes of Orcs chanting his name, and finally he is revealed. While we don't get a good enough closer look at this character, a lot can be theorized about his identity and his role in future episodes.
What is this?
The account of a human spy retrieved from an enemy dungeon.
The big reveal that lays the ground for Adar. From the beginning of the Rings of Power, elf warrior Galadriel suspected that the defeat of Morgoth was not the end of the evil. Episode 3 comes with some shocking revelations that prove her worst fears. She learns that the evil forces actually prepared for the event of Morgoth's defeat, and in such a case, his successor would claim his powers. We also learn more about Sauron's signature, which turns out to be the map of the Southlands. Are the Orcs trying to develop what will become Mordor? Going by this theory, the identity of Adar becomes all the more important because he is doing one of the most crucial things to bring the evil forces back into contention. His elf features are quite obvious. This might be something that the fans of Tolkien might not approve of, but it is what it is. Adar shows some pretty obvious elf-like features, and these are just as evident in his orc features. He has the slightly tilted ears of an elf, and there is a buzz around about the possibility that he might be a fallen elf. If you take a closer look at his hand, it becomes clear that there has been some sort of corruption that has transformed one of the elves into the leader of the orcs. Why the Tolkien fans might be agitated is because J.R.R. Tolkien's lore is clear on the fact that elves cannot become orcs. The rings of power might go separate ways, or might simply create a loophole going ahead that would make it possible. However, it is also mentioned in the Silmarillion that the first orcs might actually have been created from imprisoned elves who were tortured and mutilated by Morgoth himself. At this point, Tolkien was probably just exploring the options out there, and it might be the subtle hint that the showrunners decided to pick up on. There remains a lack of clarity on this front, and for now, the fans can only enjoy the mesmerizing makeup and effects that make him look like a genuinely terrifying villain.
The leader by an elvish word. Sauron was said to have many names in days of old. Perhaps this is one of them.
Could Adar be Sauron? This is one of the biggest questions ever since the third episode of The Rings of Power was released, and there are a few good reasons behind such speculations. Initially, Arondir's fellow elf prisoners point out the possibility when they talk about how Sauron went by various names. It could always be the case that Adar was just one of the many names known to them. Adar, however, is an elfish word, and in all likelihood it means father according to one of Tolkien's special dialects. It probably implies that Adar is a father figure for the elves and serves as one of the primary servants of Morgoth. In the First Age, Morgoth had several such servants who organized his evil army, and Adar could be the one in charge of creating the orcs. During the Second Age of Middle-earth, Sauron went into hiding after the defeat of his master Morgoth. He decided to wait out the storm, but the evil mission continued in secrecy. Adar could well be Sauron, given how he has a similar kind of command over the orcs. Besides, it must also be taken into consideration that we are in the Southlands, and the people living here actually sided with Morgoth during the events of the war. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, now does it? Sauron could well be in hiding nearby, and Adar could be the identity that he uses to conceal his presence. Adar's hands remain gloved in an armored gauntlet, and this image does bring Sauron's unforgettable appearance to our minds. Also, given that Sauron is a shapeshifter, he could take any form to remain in hiding.
For Adar, but not for you!
On the other side of the argument, one can point out that Sauron actually tricked some of the elves into trusting him under the disguise of Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. This happened during the Second Age of Middle-earth, and this approach is certainly not in line with what we see in the case of Adar. From the very beginning of this show, fans have been wondering about the secret identity of Sauron, wondering if he could be hiding in plain sight, and any mysterious character always adds fuel to the fire.
For Adar.
Adar could simply be Sauron's trusted general. Adar could be Sauron, but wouldn't that be far too obvious? Given that the show has proved time and time again that they are brave enough to take a new route, it wouldn't be surprising if this theory is busted shortly, and it turns out to be far more anticlimactic. For instance, Adar could well be one of Sauron's important generals, laying the groundwork for his grand return. Commanding the orcs alone is not sufficient proof that he is Sauron. Being the leader of the orcs comes with risks, because if the elf army discovers their presence, they would be slaughtered. Does it make more sense for Sauron to risk his own life, or is it a smart move to outsource the task to some trusted general? If you remember The Lord of the Rings, Sauron always had certain leaders between him and the orcs on the front lines. Some memorable characters like Nazgul and heralds like the Mouth of Sauron come to mind. Adar could always be something similar, simply a corrupted soul who works for Sauron. We leave this one for your wise judgment and rational thinking to figure out.
To render hidden truths as works of beauty. For beauty has great power to heal the soul.
What if he is Theo's father and knows about Arondir's love for Bronwyn? The subtle shades of romance between Arondir, the elf soldier, and Bronwyn, a single mother who is a mortal human, have been one of the story arcs followed in the first 2 episodes. It also explored how her son Theo was drawn to the dark powers of Morgoth and Sauron, There was a scene where he was being questioned by one of his friends about his absentee father, and he didn't have the satisfactory answer. It is established that his father left them and went away, and it could all be lined up dramatically for a big reveal, where Adar is actually Bronwyn's husband. The forces of evil appealed to him, and maybe he took up the mantle to help Sauron launch an elaborate mission to reclaim the land that they had lost. If that is the case, and if he is somehow aware of Arondir's feelings towards his wife, the Braveheart elf might be in for a lot of trouble. An easy death is probably gonna be the last thing on his mind. While all of this sounds a bit too theatrical, it might be jumping to the gun too soon. Mortals aren't supposed to live all of these years, and Theo's father couldn't have been one of those who went to fight for Morgoth because that is in generations earlier. It is a rather unusual possibility unless the creators have some other logic in store for us.
This must be how they escaped our detection, and how they shield themselves from sunlight.
Why we can tell that the character is super important. First things first, you don't name an entire episode after a character if he's not going to make an impact going ahead. As we've seen, the third episode barely even introduces him in the last 5 minutes, and we don't even get enough information on the character. Clearly, going ahead, the showrunners have some major plans for the character, and they want the mystery to remain alive for as long as possible. Many fans are suggesting that Adar could be one of the most important characters in the first season of the Rings of Power, and that can pit him against some of the heroic figures that we have been introduced to so far. The makers roped in a seasoned actor, Joseph Mall, to play the role. Many of you might know him from the Game of Thrones, where he played the role of Benjen Stark. The actor could have been just about anyone under all of that makeup if he didn't involve a major part of the story, or had some crucial dialogues involved. Joseph Mall has remained tight-lipped about his role, and he didn't even appear for any interview to maintain secrecy. While we sit back and speculate all we want about who Adar is and what he is going to be like, one thing is for certain: he is going to be a major part of the Rings of Power, and he might just be one of the primary leaders of the evil forces. Do let us know in the comments below about your thoughts on Adar and what you think his character might turn out to be. Tell us whether you are looking forward to more content on Adar as the story moves forward, and we will be happy to oblige. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.
And the Southlands are in grave danger.
If Sauron has indeed returned,